to.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to virtually call to order this December meeting of the Delaware County Jail Oversight Board. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
The United States of America.
and to the republic
for which
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and
liberty and
justice for
justice for all. Thank you. As you can all see, I am virtual along with Judge Pagano this afternoon. I will attempt to chair this meeting virtually, although sometimes that can be challenging, especially with regards to public comment. And so also in attendance today, of course, is our Vice Chair, Controller Phillips, who may step in at some point or another to tag team through chairing this. I'd like to, as another administrative point of order, announce that we did have a executive session yesterday to cover matters of contract and security. And I believe that probably covers the scope of what we had yesterday. Moving on to our first round of public comment. And per usual, we have 2 rounds of public comment for the meeting. The first is specifically related to items that are on our agenda for this afternoon. And at the tail end, we will have another round of public comment that can be more generally about meetings generally or topics generally related to the oversight of the jail. So if there is anyone from the public who would like to address the board at this time, please step to the mic. And as usual, you have a 3-minute time limit, which is listed on the screen. And please start with your name and address.
And it does not appear as if there will be public comment at this time, but there is a chance at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Controller Phillips. Moving on to our next item will be an approval of the November minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the November meeting minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to the approval of the November reports. Is there a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Corson. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Sheriff Sanders. Is there any comment or question regarding the reports? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, moving to the warden's report. Warden Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone. And we'll wait for the presentation to be drawn up. Thank you, Sean. All right, beginning as we typically do with the monthly statistics, and the current population as of this morning for our facility is 1,134 incarcerated persons, which is a decrease of 24 from last month's meeting. The following statistics are from November of 2023. We had our weekender program of 14 participants. 12 of those were first timers and 4 of the participants were female. Total commitments was 477 with discharges totaling at 520. You can notice the anomalies in which we did not provide full block recreation as listed on the following dates on this slide. Many of those were related to power outages as well as some other maintenance repairs that needed to take place. Again, this does not mean that the population is locked in for the entirety of the shift. It just means that the full population was not out for the full duration of the shift on those dates. I also have the unfortunate job to report that we had another Sentinel event during the last calendar month. On November 19th, 2023, a 39-year-old Caucasian male had come into our intake department on that date and unfortunately experienced a medical event that was life-threatening, and ultimately he was pronounced as deceased within our facility on the date that he arrived. This was completed as per protocols with an investigation in partnership with CID and the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner's office did complete a full autopsy, and I do believe that they have conclusive findings. That information is typically released by the Office of the Medical Examiner. These circumstances were not related to anything suspicious within the facility, but is, of course, a tragedy that we as a facility went through, and his family support and loved ones have also had to endure. In terms of statistics, we've been working to find the best way to provide this information just to start to report on some of the demographic information of the population. And so we do a point in time census snapshot because it's difficult to average all of the individuals who come into the institution. So on November 1 at 12, you can see that our population was 1,177, with the majority of those, nearly 90%, being male. The majority of those were pre-trial. They were 85%. We had only 14.5% roughly that was serving a county sentence within the institution. In terms of additional demographics, we continue to average the largest population falling between the ages of 25 to 34, though you can see the breakdown for the other age classifications as well. And we have a predominant population of those that are identified as African American. Again, I want to remind everybody that, of course, as always, there are limitations with data. In our reporting system within the offender management system, we're only able to select one ethnicity or race that is reported. And so it's whichever one is first reported by the individual that is counted towards those statistics. In total, for the month of November, from the 1st until the 30th, as we discussed earlier, we had 477 commitments. And those that had lead charges, the reason that brought them to incarceration, you can see the categories that totaled over 15 within that 477 were aggravated assault, arrest prior to requisition, domestic relations, DUI, firearms or weapons-related charges, failure to appear, lodger, which is another jurisdiction of somebody who also has adjudication processes in Delaware County, possession and charges, receiving stolen property, retail theft, simple assault, and the largest category continues to remain as violation of probation. We had 117 individuals, or 24.5%, that were related to violation of probation only. They had no additional cases. So it was a violation of their terms and conditions of probation, no new charges.
Warden, sorry to interrupt you for a moment, but the previous slide, I noted that it was for November 1st. Are we always showing these for the beginning of the month instead of the end of the month?
Yes. So we've chosen to report on the same day every time we're doing this, and maybe we can modify that as we move forward to 2024. But November 1's the start of each month at a specific time. It's objective. So that was just what we've done comparatively.
Okay, understood.
So the lower right quadrant, you can see, and this is specific to warrants and violations only. So Judge Amoroso asked a bit more about the violation status. Individuals who had a failure to appear only, no additional charges, were 37. The violation of probation or parole was 117 only, so no additional cases. Total domestic relations only, which is related to child support, was 17. A new case and violation of probation, so they had both the violation and additional charges, potentially more than one, lodged against them, were 30. So we do provide these breakdowns. We are continuously open to feedback from individuals as to what information is useful or helpful. This information is additionally shared with the Public Defender's Office, the courts, and the District Attorney's Office too, for their own evaluation as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure thing.
So if it's not failure to appear and it's not, because when I get a gagnon, which is after they've been incarcerated, I've almost never gotten a gagnon that isn't either a failure to appear and a failure to appear after like 24 months or 18 months or a new case. And then it'll come in front of me for a gagnon 2 hearing. I don't even know what other terms of probation they're violating that they're being incarcerated for. And if they are, I want to know what those terms are. Like what, I don't even, the rules and regulations of probation, having read them, like one of the things is you can't hunt. Okay, in this area, it's not a big deal. Like, so I'll tell people like, by the way, you can't hunt. And they're always like, yeah, I'm Delco, I'm not gonna hunt. But so what violations are they going to prison for if it is not a new case and it's not failure to appear? What are they violating? They're electronic monitoring? Could that be it?
So I've not looked at the 117 that
Mhm.
just came in this last month, but I would imagine that if we closely examine those, which the probation department, I'm sure does, it's likely related to failure to comply with whatever terms allowed them to be on a
No,
probation
I
status
understand that, but
and or positive drug screens. So people are incarcerated for having a positive
not the
drug
first
screen.
one now. Yeah.
So part of giving this information isn't to imply judgment, though it may seem that way. It's simply to report on the numbers and allow an opportunity for all criminal justice stakeholders to have the information and to evaluate. So I don't know, and I don't know in terms of when a judge or probation has to make those difficult decisions, everything that sits in front of them that allows them to make the best one. But we would have a failure to follow up, not contacting their probation department as they're directed to do, not complying with treatment recommendations that they may be recommended to do, providing a positive drug screen, maybe they abscond, maybe they are on an electronic monitoring status and they
Absconding
exceed
would
the
be the failure
window.
to appear, wouldn't it?
Could be, yeah, but I would assume that probation likely has their own kind of terms of if you fail to report, which is not the same thing, they may be violating if you are consistently not reporting to your probation officer and you're required to do so. You seem skeptical.
Because if they're in jail,
Mhm.
they come in front of a judge.
Correct.
So I'm just going based on my own experience, which is really primarily new cases. Because I guess my question is, so how do they get out of jail if we're not letting them out? George, is your experience different than mine? Because we're the people letting them out. And if somebody is going to prison because they missed an appointment with their probation officer, that's a problem. If they have never reported, or they haven't reported for the last 18 months, or this is their 5th failure of a drug screen, and it was part of that, that's different. At least I think so. George, are you having them come in front of you for like a missed appointment? I'm not.
Your
You're on
Honor,
mute.
You're on mute. The other, Your Honor.
Judge Pagano, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
That's what happened to me yesterday. Well, we can't hear you, George.
I see him attempting.
I know.
Certainly, if we're able to resolve the audio complications, we can certainly revisit this topic.
Mhm.
prior to the closure of the meeting. But I do think that there is an opportunity. It's curious. So the numbers are high, and I recognize that your experience is certainly an important one. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it is reflective of the full population, because thankfully you're one person, you can't handle them all. But I do think there is likely an opportunity for reviews to be done. And that's part of the intention of sharing information. It's not to impose judgment. It's simply to report what is. And historically, this kind of information wasn't even tried, I think, to
Which
be
is fine.
examined and reported.
So how can we, because it seems to me that that would be a place
Mhm.
to bring the population down, and a place over which we have a fair amount of control, to the extent that probation has control and judges have control. So how can we do that? How can we get you guys with probation, with Judge Kelly, not to volunteer him, but to know what these 117 people, like, should they really not have been in prison? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think what might be a good, and part of what's wonderful about these meetings, that they stimulate conversation that may or may not be happening, and who knows if they are. So perhaps in 2024, in the criminal justice system, we commit to beginning with a meeting, because I can share this information and make sure that it can be closely examined by all the parties that are affected and or contribute to the decision-making. And maybe we'll see if we have some different outcomes.
Okay.
Probation.
So I managed to unmute. I don't have enough information. Of the 117 which you broke down, Warden Williams, could you send me an email with those numbers again, the breakdown among the 117? And then I would be glad to take a look at that further. I'm sure so would Judge Amoroso.
George, the 117 is just violations of probation, not a new case, not a failure to appear. So the 117 are solely violations of the terms of their probation. So maybe they cut off their monitor, maybe they had a hot urine, maybe they didn't follow through with sex offender treatment. That's possibly, but that's what that is. And what I said was, it's not failures to appear, that's a different number. New cases, that's a different number. So it's 117 people who have, and I don't mean to say just, but have violated their probation.
Judge Amoroso, I really appreciate your focusing in on this issue, and I agree. I mean, that does seem like a lot. I would welcome offline for there to be follow-up, whatever further information that Warden Williams can provide, we can do so. But I suspect you're probably going to find there's more information on the side of the courts and with the Office of Adult Probation and Parole. They'll probably have more information about this. But I agree. I think it's something that in the new year, I would certainly love to see us examine this a little bit more closely.
So I will share the requested information as well, Judge Pagano. I can do that quite easily. To move forward, behavioral health statistics. So as you can see, and I've included the previous months just because I think that it can sometimes be helpful in terms of trends and recognizing that information. But obviously our month of focus is November. So our average daily population, I include again, just so that we can get percentages and help to have some contextual foundations for this information. So we do have 32% of our population presently prescribed a psychiatric medication, at least one. We have a volume of visits by psychology. And so that is every single clinical visit that you would see, which is why it's totaling so high. Some individuals on basis of being on a status or observation need to be seen with a higher level of frequency than others that might be in general population. And then we further expand upon our medications for opioid use disorder. We climbed last month, we had 10.36%. So, oops, I think I broke it. Whereas we had a higher population reported on last month, our population is down with a higher level of participation in medications for opioid use disorder, which is why we see an increase. So 11% of the population as of today is presently prescribed a medication for opioid use disorder. And those include the oral form of buprenorphine as well as the injection form of buprenorphine known as Sublocade. And we have individuals on methadone. None of our present individuals are pregnant and on medication-assisted treatment. So these are all males and females who are not opioid dependent within their pregnancy. And so you can see that we again are climbing in the individuals who are continued in treatment, suggesting that there is remaining a large need for this population within our facility, as well as those being inducted to treatment. So people who come in potentially with illicit substance use related to opioids and can be inducted in our agency in order to be engaged in a treatment program of which we continue to coordinate for discharge into the community. Our training academy. So a special thank you to Honorable Judge George Pagano, who also serves on the Jail Oversight Board, for participating in last month's graduation ceremony. He was the judge that administered the oath to our officers so that they could be sworn in and join other uniformed staff of George W. Hill. We had one graduation since our last meeting, which was on November 22nd, and 18 full-time correctional officers and one classification coordinator were honored for completing the basic training academy. We have a current class that is expected to graduate this month. So they started on November 13th and they will graduate on December 22nd. And we began our final class for this calendar year this Monday, yesterday on December 11th. And we are recruiting for our class to begin on January 8th in 2024. And I did include, in case there are people who are watching who are interested in joining George W. Hill, so that you might plan for the future and when you could join our family and the team. We do hold a basic training academy, at least for now. One a month is what we are scheduled to conduct until we are able to get to ample staffing. So though we have made significant improvements, we still need to fill vacancies and make sure that we have qualified staff that are able to support the mission at George W. Hill. And we would welcome individuals to apply on the website directly. We wanted to honor and recognize our employees of the month, and you can see them pictured here. Officer Khalil Andrews, who works predominantly in our visitation room. He was one of the officers who had several shout outs from the Inside Out program, as well as a lot of unsolicited feedback and comments from family members, supporters, and loved ones who come to visit incarcerated individuals. They noted that they receive a pleasant disposition. He's extraordinarily helpful every single time they come on site. And that can be a pretty tenuous time and stressful for family members when they come into the institution, when they are meeting with somebody that they've been separated from. So wanted to make sure to share a little background about some of our employees this month. Kathy Miller is also being recognized. Predominantly, she works as a bookkeeper. What people don't also know is that she's held several different positions historically in the institution. So she also serves as one of our proctors for GED testing. She is certified through Pearson VUE to do that and assist the education department as needed. And she has recently stepped into the role of case manager, which is a position she had previously held, as that department has been going through transition. And so she definitely worked to answer the call of the needs that presented our agency this past month and continues to do so. Wanted to also recognize Joe Grasso. Last year, he was named one of our employees of the month when he held the position of maintenance technician. And he is a master of many different things in the agency. We currently have the position for manager as vacant, and he stepped into the interim role. He volunteered to assist during, again, this time of need. During this period, he has demonstrated enormous leadership and, more importantly, communication, which is one of the biggest challenges in a correctional agency. And I look forward to our agency, myself included, improving in the way that we communicate with everybody to make sure that we don't make things harder for each other. So Joe has definitely stepped up into a pretty significant role. I'm sure you can imagine being the maintenance manager in a building that has had deferred maintenance issues for a long time period is quite a challenge, and he has done so without complaint.
Yeah, and I'd like to just pause you for a moment there and echo your appreciation. I know Mr. Grosso really stepped up significantly here, and we on the board really appreciate his efforts.
Thank you. I'm sure he'll get I hear that a lot of employees watch, so hopefully somebody will let him know if he's not also watching. We are still seeking additional employees, as I referenced earlier, though we've made significant progress. We have not filled every vacancy, and it is definitely a hope of mine that the staff will be able to perform their functions to the best of their capacity without having to do additional work because of vacancies. So we do hope that individuals who are interested will join our team and apply directly on the website. This is the slide that we're all used to seeing, and there are all of the items that are crossed out. Not to say that they won't be carried over into 2024, and those that are highlighted in the blue font are actually significantly deferred projects that will definitely be carried over either into 2024 to start or into 2025 or 26. And most of those are directly related to capital improvement needs that must happen in the agency. We are working to make advancements to ensure that we can accomplish those goals and have been partnering with the Department of Public Works as well as many others to make sure that we can enhance the safety measures in the institution that so desperately need it and provide services while we're working through those construction management processes. I wanted to take a moment to celebrate a recent graduation ceremony that occurred. We hosted the closing ceremony for Inside Out, which is a prison exchange program partnered through Penn State Brandywine. The program actually began in 1997 with Temple University. It's expanded across the country. This is the second year that George W. Hill has had the privilege of participating in this program. And the right-hand picture of the screen, you can see Dr. Angela Putnam. And you can see just based on her visual presentation, she is somebody who is just electric in personality and enthusiasm and provides a great deal of knowledge, experience, and support to both the inside and outside learners. We were extremely excited that this year we started with 10 inside learners and ended with 8 that successfully completed the program. Last year we started with 10 and we only had 4 able to complete. We have such a transient environment that it is sometimes difficult to achieve full completion of programs, but the students were extraordinary. The speeches that they gave were passionate. I think that everybody who was involved was very moved. And it was wonderful to see. One of the things that I like most about this image is that you cannot tell who is an inside student and who is an outside student. And so I'd like to specifically thank Kelly Shaw for organizing to get button-down shirts for the participants who are inside, as well as ties, so that we didn't have that difference in appearance. And for their final speeches, they would be able to truly find their voice and believe in their capacity for change in the future. I also wanted to thank Councilman Madden for his attendance, as well as Brian Corson for supporting. It meant so much to the participants to have outside people come to the meeting. And then one final acknowledgement, a thank you to Sean, who nobody who listens to these meetings may know is responsible for publishing these meetings as they're live streamed. But he also worked to make sure that the ceremony was live streamed for all of the loved ones and support people of the participants so that they could be there and experience it too without physically coming into the institution. And so I just felt like all of those acknowledgements were extraordinarily appropriate. And thank you to everybody for making this such a success. Not to be overshadowed, We had our second session of the fatherhood program complete as well, and their graduation ceremony was on Monday. Our first class actually graduated in August, and you might have recalled that we reported on that during the Jail Oversight Board meeting. I included at that time and wanted to carry it over Pennsylvania Act number 114 that was established in 2022. And it really talks about the importance of family involvement, particularly of fathers within their children's lives, as well as reintegration, discussing the importance of that to help break some of the cycles and really support individuals who are parents and experience incarceration to hopefully prevent their children from being engaged in the future as well. And so you can see in this photo, as well as the individuals from Foundation of Delaware County who support and provide these services, Deputy Falley and our Workforce and Education Administrator, Joan Skursky, were photographed with the participants as well. And they too were very excited. They were able to enjoy some cupcakes on Monday with their celebration. Wanted to also make sure that everybody was aware, and this ties in a little bit to public comment, though I feel it leaves me a little bit off the hook. So last month, one of the public comments talked about the importance of written communication with family members and loved ones, and how we as an agency need to find better ways to support that in the institution, particularly around the holidays. And so thank you to Delaware County Delco CPR, who had already had this in the works. This is their 5th annual holiday card drive, but they went above and beyond. We had 448 donated cards that remained from last year's donation of 700, and they donated an additional 2,688 this year, which means that every single person in the institution is entitled to more than one should they want to communicate to their family members during this time. We have, since we are in the season of Hanukkah, we have Hanukkah cards, we have Christmas cards, we have non-religious cards that are available, just seasonal, as well as Kwanzaa cards. And so the process for this is that these cards have been made available to the case managers, who are able to give those to the incarcerated population. The population then returns them, and then we mail those out, and we utilize the inmate welfare funds for the postage to get those to family members. And so this is an incredible growth, and we are extraordinarily fortunate that we were able to do this in partnership with Delco CPR. You can see images on this screen, and this is a shout out to Sheriff Sanders and the Delaware County Sheriff's Department. I think one of the most extraordinary things about Delaware County is the opportunity for partnership and extension of resources when we are otherwise limited. And so being budget conscious of what is available and how to get staff trained and certified for different things, I think is on the mind of every department or director. And one of the ways that the criminal justice agencies are attempting to do that is in partnership with each other. So we've had several different opportunities with the Delaware County Park Police, as well as the Delaware County Sheriff's Department, to do interdepartmental training. And on November 18th, we were able to engage several of the Sheriff's Department staff with George W. Hill staff to do cell extraction training, as well as review use of force measures and report writing to make sure that we're all certified to keep people safe. So they did this on a Saturday so that it wouldn't disrupt any other training initiatives or measures. And what I'm told is that the training experience was a little bit rougher than they thought, which I think any of us who go to do defensive tactics are reminded that we're maybe not in the best shape we thought we were, but that they were excited to look forward to future training opportunities. I wanted to officially announce on behalf of the agency that George W. Hill has accomplished accreditation with the National Commission of Correctional Healthcare. We previously had reported that our June auditing visit resulted in a provisional award. So we needed to have an additional site visit, which occurred on October 23rd of 2023. We actually weren't anticipating an official response from NCCHC until early 2024, but Christmas came early for those of us that celebrate Christmas. And we were notified of this positive response. And to provide a little bit of education, NCCHC is something that no jails are required to do, but it is a standardized accrediting body that is national. They have 59 standards, 39 of those which are known as essential or mandatory standards, 20 which are important standards. And to achieve accreditation, there must be 100% compliance with essential standards and a threshold of 85% compliance with important standards. Our agency and the staff that work there were able to, of the 38 that were applicable to us for essential standards, meet 100% compliance. And for the 20 important standards, and 19 of which are applicable to us, they achieved 100% of the applicable standards. So they were 100% compliant across the board. And we could not be more proud of the efforts that went to, as well as the partnership and the rigorous review of documentation as well as process by NCCHC, which included a certified physician as well as other clinical staff and their administrative staff. We will be accredited until 2026, of which we will have the opportunity to have a reaccreditation visit and achieve a reaccreditation again in the next cycle. For commissary updates, we wanted to ensure that we let family and friends that might be watching know this information is available on the facility website. But beginning December 13th, until January 12th, 2024, we will be adding eye care packages for friends and family to order for incarcerated persons. There are 2 different packages. So last year we offered 4, and we recognized that it was better to maybe offer 2 different packages at more reasonable price points and get those options out to family members. The bags include menu items that are presently available through commissary, and they are some of the highest ordered high volume areas or items that the population appears to appreciate the most, as well as some items that are not otherwise available in the menu. And so all of this information, again, is available on the website. Our administrator of reentry and programs, Kelly Shaw, made sure that that was updated today in advance of this meeting. Last month, the Jail Oversight Board approved the utilization of inmate welfare funds to purchase items to assemble holiday gift packages for the incarcerated population. We were able to receive those into our inventory and will begin assembling those packages next Thursday on 12/21/23. And the packages will then be distributed throughout the facility on Friday, the 22nd. Wanted to include the visitation numbers, especially to show that we were able to still on the Thanksgiving holiday honor visitors coming in to see their family members. So very important to us that we're able to sustain those efforts for individuals while they're incarcerated. And you can see that our visitation program continues to grow. It seems that people are able to access and utilize the scheduling function very well. And the 1-hour time slot is still obviously preferred higher than the 30-minute time slot. Now, before I get into the next slides, I'm going to offer a disclaimer, which is I don't want to read everything on the slide because nobody needs me to do that. But I also wanted to acknowledge that this is the final meeting of this calendar year. And because of that, it feels appropriate to do a 2023 wrap up and to identify some, but certainly not all of the highlights. Though I am the person presenting this, it is the facility and those that perform these functions every day that should assume the credit, because they have worked very hard through a number of different obstacles, to include staffing challenges that, though we've abated them recently, the majority of this year still faced that. The staff continue to work in a facility with deferred maintenance issues that need to be addressed. And so they do all of this work in spite of those challenges. They assume that daily. They do so with professionalism and commitment and passion. And we would not be able to have these lists of slides with bulleted items if it weren't for those individuals. And so I greatly appreciate their dedication, as well as those that have continued to refine their craft So many of our staff have sought additional education, experience, and training. Even more staff have embraced each other to help and support them to find the way. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that this is them, and we should be extraordinarily grateful for everything that they do. I'll also say we still have lots of things that we can and will and remain committed to improve upon. But I do always think that it's important to celebrate the successes, to continue to motivate, to push forward. Because if we don't take the time to acknowledge what we have accomplished, then we'll burn out. So I wanted to be able to highlight some of the things. And so you can see them as we run through. In the healthcare department, a lot has been accomplished, but we had 2 of our individuals present at a national conference in Washington, D.C., and we had mentioned that in a previous Jail Oversight Board meeting. We also implemented SureScripts and Cerner, which is maybe something that you're not aware of, but this should be of interest. Any person who comes into the institution, we can do an immediate medication verification for them as long as they provide consent for us to do that, which means any medication that they were prescribed in the community, we will be able to see, and we'll have the opportunity to bridge and continue that medication or make sure that we're informing those treatment decisions moving forward. Sometimes our patients come in and they're poor historians, or they're in a state of crisis and they aren't able to give us this information. So this is a tool to help that assessment process and intake. We've also implemented the Restoration to Competency program within the agency. In the administration and operations department, there has been an enormous amount of advancement to move towards technology. It is not the only way that we can access these things, but in terms of data and reportability, especially to this board, it has been an extreme support to be able to transition to electronic monitoring of grievances or information requests. We've also seen that this has decreased incidences and frustration within the institution, which makes it a safer environment for everybody because people are able to get responsiveness to their requests. We've also done a great deal of enhancements within the facility to attempt to repair. We are presently installing, or will be next week, laundry equipment that took quite some time to procure, but was absolutely necessary. And I hope as our staff continue to see incremental changes, that they will continue to believe that change is possible and will continue. It is just not always as immediate as we all do want it to be. In the case management department, I think that it is extraordinary that despite the transition, attrition, and turnover throughout that department, individuals have continued to do cross-departmental training. Many of them have found themselves learning the DNA process, Megan's Law procedures, assisting with address verification, which is a responsibility predominantly assumed by the adult probation department. They've also been able to be cross-trained in the law library. So when we have planned scheduled benefit time, making sure that those services are continuously available to the population. They've also been the department that has assisted with facilitation of voting and making sure that those rights are observed within the institution. Our Central Records Department has responded to every single subpoena request for documentation from the courts, of which there are unimaginable volumes. They are responsive, they are thorough, they ensure that every subpoena or release is accurate for the right information, and they do extensive follow-up. They also completed destruction of records to free up some space that was desperately needed in the institution. This was, of course, done in compliance with all records retention periods within the agency. In reentry and programs, our law librarian got recertified as a notary for the next 3 years. And then I'd like you to look at the third bullet, the amount of partnerships that were either developed or continued or further strengthened. And there are so many that we have been able to add to the menu of services provided to the institution and the population. In terms of compliance, Power DMS, which is an online document management system, which will help with consistent communication, hopefully in the future, and strengthening that, we've been able to increase staff accessibility and access. There was an extensive review, update, and communication of a revised incarcerated person handbook within this last calendar year as well. In education and workforce development, Our team was extraordinary in their partnership with other agencies and actually attended an incarcerated person job fair that was organized by SCI Chester. And we are in the exploration phase as to how we might do something similar in our agency as well. As a cohesive team, and the number on here, I can't wait to revise it. When these numbers were submitted to me, it was counting for the previous months, but I had the opportunity to speak to our workforce and education development administrator, Joan Skursky, and she informed me that as of today, the facility has achieved an astounding 82 GEDs, which is just unheard of. And to go on a quick diatribe, I think that it's important to recognize that the GED portion is 4 different elements of testing. You have to pass every single one in order to achieve your GED. With a transient population, that is extraordinarily difficult to do on a timeline. And I truly believe that the success of that is not just because we have qualified and skilled instructors as well as testers, but they believe in the individuals who are taking the tests. And because of that, the individuals who are testing have increased self-efficacy and are able to accomplish this goal. It is one of the largest predictors of recidivism, the level of education that a person has in incarceration. So to better prepare people for reintegration for employment, GED is paramount. I hope in the future our numbers are never this high, because essentially our education department puts themselves out of a job, because they will have achieved everybody who meets needing a GED will have a GED. I also wanted to talk about the expansion of services from the substance use department. Particularly, they facilitate 27 groups weekly to make sure that we are able to provide for PrEP 1, PrEP 2, sex offender group, anger management group, and they're also assisting in providing medication-assisted treatment groups because the population continues to increase, to make sure that we can extend those services otherwise. And I think when you start to look at numbers and recognize the volume of work that's done in an agency, it's extraordinary. In video court services, there has been, I think one of the best things is some streamlined processes, including refusals, which I know has come up in the past. And so our refusal numbers for video court have declined extraordinarily. And that is part of the effort of oversight and questions asked by this board to make sure that we have increased awareness in the agency and that we are putting eyes on into how to solve some of these problems. We do find that the overwhelming majority of individuals who do continue to refuse, of which that number is less than 5 in a calendar month for video court, are severely mentally ill, and or there is a question of their competency status. So I hate to say that that makes sense, but we have made significant strides, and I do believe we'll make even larger ones in the next calendar year. Additionally, we were not previously tracking data. And so Raven Haggerty, who is the video services supervisor, did this independently. She recognized there was a need to be able to evaluate and determine what efficiency levels there are. There are only 8 courtrooms in our video services center, all of which are very small. So it is difficult to get to capacity, and knowing that and then seeing these numbers makes it that much more extraordinary. In terms of the other category, we assist with a lot of different investigative interviews as well as public defender meetings in the courts. So they're not there for a specific legal action, but they are being facilitated with either other jurisdictions who require to see that individual, or the public defender's office is meeting with their client. For records department, I did give them a large shout out last month. And so we continue to highlight the efforts of what they've done. And some of the things that I didn't share about them last month is that they processed at least 243 non-business hour discharges, which frequently requires either my director or assistant director to be working from home to verify releases. This directly reduces the average length of stay for the individual and makes sure that a timely release is processed. And they're coordinating with our security department personnel to make sure that the release is facilitated. They also complete the 300B state sentence certified calculations. And they did, I said at least 339 because I know that this is well beyond that number when I was given this data statistic point. And per the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, we're the second highest amount for counties in Pennsylvania of individuals who are sentenced to a state correctional institution. I didn't realize that. So that means that we are sending, unfortunately, a lot of our individuals who are convicted do require state correctional sentences. Other counties report or rely on their courts to process these sentencing documents. And we're actually doing this within our records department, which we've seen has reduced the length of time in which somebody's transferred from our agency to an SCI. Frequently, their state time does not actually begin or calculate until they are transferred to a state correctional institution, which is all that much more important for us to get them out of our jurisdiction and to where they belong so that they can complete their sentence and advance. So I wanted to make sure that that was highlighted. In our security and training departments, there was the implementation of the Apex virtual reality simulator, and we have been able to share this resource interdepartmentally as we discussed. Tech 84 body scanner, 11 graduations of the basic training academy, and we had several staff that were certified by the Department of Corrections and a number of different items. Cost recovery. So this slide we report on every single month just to make sure that we have up-to-date information. This becomes more relevant with the next slide, which includes an ask. But the balance of the Inmate Welfare Fund as of 11/30/2023 is totaling over $3.8 million. And so I will invite our program manager from the Office of Rehabilitation and Community Justice, Michael Resnick, to stand next to me and maybe help me articulate this next slide. Thank you. So we have the opportunity, and this was a grant fund that was secured and reported on. So in Congresswoman Scanlon's office, 2 separate grants. New Leash on Life is one of them. Branching Up is another. And this is done in partnership with Temple University and the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. It's an 18-week program, 12 of which occur while somebody is incarcerated, 6 in the community as an internship. Skills certification in horticultural training and landscaping, including organic techniques that prepare individuals for green industry opportunities. Upon completion, the participant will obtain certification, have had assistance with obtaining government IDs and transportation, which is an enormous barrier to our reintegration population, and will be placed with a job or employment. The internships are coordinated through Temple University and the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, which reduces the challenge of the incarcerated person organizing that. In addition to the industry-specific skills, which is predominantly landscaping, they'll practice and apply conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, communication skills, public speaking, resume building, team working, self-awareness, and self-care. And so the budget for these grants has to be developed by the organizations that are providing the services. And those are, of course, reviewed in partnership by our Delaware County. And Mr. Resnick has been the program manager and one of the point person in keeping us all very organized to make sure that we can move these initiatives forward. We have received the review of the budget, and the grant funds will support $1,149,010. But there is a gap in funding in which there is a request for us to support. And so the request for funding is $78,990. And the request is that it would come directly from the Inmate Welfare Fund. And I think Mr. Resnick can just provide a little bit of kind of the background for the request.
Sure. And just to correct the word in one very small point, it's not a lack of funding. It's that the grant rules only allow for a certain percentage in indirect costs. So I believe it's 10%. And the indirect costs are sort of the administrative costs that it takes Temple and PHS to run these operations. So, think sort of IT and office supplies and things like that. The indirect costs for this program run 16%. So it exceeds the amount that the grant allows to fund. And it's that difference that we're seeking to have covered by the welfare fund. I will note that this program, branching up by partnership with PHS and Temple University, as well as the New Leash on Life program that are being funded by this grant, are 100% inmate welfare fund funded in the city of Philadelphia prison system. And we're just asking for this percentage of the indirect costs that exceeds the amount allowable under this grant.
So if there are any questions for us that we might be able to answer, I don't mean to cut in on your responsibilities, Chairman, but I also know it's strange doing virtual.
Thank you, Warden. And just to clarify procedurally, I believe, if you didn't already say this, that this item would also have to come before County Council to support the funding of the shortfall. So what we would be doing here is making a motion or approving a motion that would recommend this use of inmate welfare funds.
Yes, that is correct. And I did fail to say that. So it would be a motion to support the advancement for our request to County Council. And the reason for that is because the request exceeds $25,000, even though it is not hitting the county general fund and it would come from the inmate welfare fund. The procurement rules would indicate that we just need to have that higher level of approval.
And one small point, the grant does cover 2 years, but this is a one-time ask, and this amount covers the indirect lapse for those 2 years.
Okay, so if there is support for a motion, why don't we do that now? And of course, there's still an opportunity for board members to ask questions or make comments once the motion has been made and seconded. So do I have a motion to support the use of $78,990 of inmate welfare funds for the branching up program?
I make the motion to support the use of the inmate welfare fund in the amount of $78,990 and to recommend to council that it be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. So are there any other questions or comments about this program or its funding for the warden and Mr. Resnick?
Yes, I have a question and a comment. I would like to at least see, get more information about it, if we could, to have a chance to review it. I think that would be appropriate to make sure it not only goes to the people the residents in Delaware County Prison that needs it, just looking at the track record or what is it done for other neighboring prisons. So I would like to at least see and review the information, since part of the reentry, part of this whole process is kind of my watch.
Would you mind clarifying beyond the budget spreadsheet that was provided, what additional information you need so we can make sure to get that to you right away?
Well, it's not nothing individually. I want to read it. I want to read the I just want to read it. I just want to look at it and read it and see what it provides and what it doesn't provide. So it's nothing in particular. I've heard of the program for sure. I definitely heard of it, but I would like to read it just to see it, and even to share the information with our board members if they would like to know as well. So I'm not going against it or nothing like that, but I would love to read it.
You just need information on the actual program of branching up.
Yes.
Thank you. That was the clarity I was seeking.
As part of the reowners program, or part of applying for this grant, we had to draft a program narrative, and that explains what the process is. I could forward that to the board, and you could see what the narrative is about, what these programs do, what they offer, how they're operated.
Yeah.
And it just explains in detail the program.
Is there any history? You said that this has been operating in other counties.
Mhm.
History of participants, and how many participants would be in this program, and who decides who gets in this program?
So it's 30 participants each year, and classes don't exceed 15. So we do two different sections of the classes. It would be a total of 60 participants. The district attorney's office and the public defender's office are the ones that evaluate and agree who can participate, because this is essentially, I would say, a plea agreement, because we're controlling when the individual would be released into the community. So they would serve their 12 weeks and engage in the program, assuming they do so successfully and in compliance with the program. They would graduate. Upon graduation, would be released into the community, where they would complete their 6-week internship program. So this will all go through the oversight of the courts in terms of the selection of the participants. There are some charges that are disqualified. So we would certainly be evaluating that as well. We, as the facility, would be providing the opportunity for the service, but would not be the determinant for who is participating.
So over 2 years, it would be 60 participants. And these would obviously, well, not obviously, but I assume would be people who are under a county sentence. 12 weeks would be, I'm terrible at math in my head. How much is that?
3 months.
3 months. Okay. And it would be open to, you said to public defenders, but other defense attorneys, would they also?
Yes,
I mean, public
absolutely.
defenders have the greater share of clients, but DAs have all of them. So
Right. So predominantly, and I don't want to speak on behalf of that process, because I think that still needs to be finalized and
Okay.
formalized. But the district attorney's office would evaluate the population of persons to determine eligibility status. And then we would be engaging their counsel, whether that's private attorney or public defender. And I'm using the royal we because the jail's not going to be doing that.
okay.
And then they would determine, discuss this with the client to determine whether or not they're even interested in such a program. And if so, it would have to go to a court action to make sure all parties were in agreement and understanding of the terms and conditions, and then progress forward.
That's the way it works in other jurisdictions, Your Honor, that it's brought to the court as part of the sentence that the person will be early paroled once they complete the program, successfully complete the program.
Mhm.
And as the word is said, upon graduation, a petition is filed and the judge grants early parole, and the person goes into the community to continue the remaining training aspects in the job.
Do you have any history of how it helps people? If Philadelphia's been doing it, like, do we have any
I'm sure
statistics?
we can get the information from PHS and Temple on their program successes, people placed in jobs, recidivism rate.
Yeah, that
all-
recidivism rate is really what I think would be of great interest,
We can provide.
because that essentially, because this program, which, I mean, it's awesome that you're able to get a grant. I mean, I'm like wondering, like, if this program's so great, like, why don't they have it at Chester High School? You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you, if you're teaching these people all of this?
Well, federal funding dollars are,
Yeah.
So I think that there are a lot of opportunities maybe for many services to be in many different places, but the federal government earmarks certain amounts of funding, particularly for this population. And so Temple and
I didn't know
PHS had secured that funding, and we were partnership with that. So I should note that though we're not coming to action from the Jail Oversight Board in terms of funding requests for new leash, very similar circumstances. So these new leash on life,
Oh, new.
these grants were secured funding at the same time. This actually occurred prior to my appointment. I don't get any credit for any of this. It's the Public Defender's Office and other stakeholders within the county. I think Alyssa Mihalik at the time had been working with Congresswoman Scanlon's office. So we're just in charge of moving this forward and executing.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Could someone, I'm assuming maybe Chairman Madden, reference where, in what ordinance of the county, why this money needs to be approved by county council? Again, it's not taxpayer dollars, et cetera. This is totally jail money. Could someone reference me as to why we're powerless in this?
Just to be clear, I wouldn't say that we're powerless in it. It would be a recommendation to council. But I would ask that the solicitor, if she is available, if she could come to the podium and just help the board member here.
Sure, good morning, afternoon. Oh my God, what's the matter with me? It's been a long day, right? Good afternoon. Shelley Smith. I am the solicitor to the Jail Oversight Board. We have previously discussed with the county solicitor the board's discretion to make decisions about expenditures from the inmate welfare fund. And even though it is not county funds, the county solicitor has advised that when it is in excess of $25,000 pursuant to the ordinance, the board still has a responsibility to make a recommendation to county council because of the potential implications of county expenditures. That's the advice that we've gotten from the county solicitor. So,
As you know, I'm no attorney. I'm on the healthcare side. So what ordinance are we discussing or are you referencing? And what ordinance are we referencing?
I don't have the ordinance number. I can
Okay.
look it up in a second and give it
You
to
can
you.
email me.
But,
County Administrative Code.
right, in the county administrative code, right. Sorry, Joanne.
No, it's all right. I'm just giving you
No, I appreciate that.
awesome. It's a county administrative code that's being interpreted by the solicitor.
Okay, so it's an interpretation because
To have it in writing from the solicitor.
only because having sat on the prior board, there was expenditures done without going to county council. So I didn't think there was ordinance changes. It's merely interpretation changes is what I'm getting.
Well, to be clear, it's a different ordinance, right? Because there was an ordinance that created this board and dissolved the prior prison board.
Okay.
And I think it's per that ordinance that the solicitor is interpreting the need to bring this before county council. And remember that under the former prison board, it had rights that no longer exist for this one, including renewing contracts with GEO that totaled significant amounts of money. So you will see a very clear difference between what this board is able to do versus what the former prison board was able to do without county council's approval.
There is a section in the Jail Oversight Board ordinance that does put a section that says, and procurement and contracts will go through a normal process, which is
Right,
anything over $25,000 goes to council.
correct.
I would hope they would be strongly moved by the recommendation of this board.
It's not the first time that the issue has come up.
Right. I mean, we've had the issue before, but because I saw this as total jail funding, to me, it's a little weak going to council, but that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
I just, maybe we'll take about, I just want to say I appreciate the detail of what the program entails and where the money is being spent and how it's constructed and, if it's 60 people over the time, it's maybe $1,300 per person that's coming out of the inmate welfare fund. And it's really leveraging a lot of federal dollars to get something. So I'm in support of it.
Yeah, I like the part that the description for me is everything. Whether we know it or not, there's a lot of people from different areas coming to Delaware County implementing or shopping their programs that they're the best. Now, I'm not an expert at everything. I'm really good at reentry though. I know about it. And I've been out long enough to know what's working and what's not working because I'm actually living in these communities. And I only say that as a concern for the people in Delaware County and the public as well. So I speak as a board member and then I speak from my experience as well. So I just wanted you to know, Warden and Mr. Resident, that I'm not being against it in any kind of way. I just feel like the public should know and we should know, right? The stuff that you just told us gave me way more information than I knew before I agreed to vote on anything. And I just think it's appropriate to do it that way. So
Warden, Mr. Resnick, if this were to be deferred to next month, which would mean then, just looking at the calendar, it could then go before county council for the January 17 meeting for formal approval. Does that create any problems from a timing perspective, or would that be acceptable? Because I have great sympathy with the desire for my former board members to feel fully informed about the program before recommending its approval.
The only issue, and I don't know that this is dispositive.
Mike, can you move closer to the,
The only issue, and I don't know that this is dispositive on this matter, is that the grant documents are due to be submitted at the end of January 31st is the deadline. We could submit the documents and the budget absent this portion of the unfunded expenses and be positive and hopeful that the board grants it and council grants it. If it doesn't happen, then PHS will have to make the decision, and Temple, whether or not they'll proceed with that portion of their expenditures not being covered.
Mr. Madden, I just want to, just from reading faces and talking here, I don't think there's a desire to hold up our recommendation today. So if we would take a vote on that, I don't think people want to table it. But I do think that it would put it in the queue for a decision by county council, hopefully January 2nd and 3rd. So I just wanted you to know that from my take from being in the room.
yeah, I appreciate that input. And look, I'd just highlight that this is a pilot program. And it's one where, you know, a very, as you can see, a very substantial portion of it is going to be funded through this grant as opposed to the inmate welfare fund. So, you know, I think there's some promising information that it's a worthwhile program. That's information that we can get more for board members about. But if at the end of the day, it doesn't work here, it is just a pilot and one where the expenditure of inmate welfare funds has been pretty small in light of the fact that we have $3.8 million that's sitting there. I think it's, you know, personally, I think it's worthwhile to see if the pilot is effective, because if it doesn't, we can always not proceed with it further. And further, I think if board members get information between now and the early January meeting of county council that makes them regret their decision here, that can individually be passed along to county council. I don't expect that they will find information that makes them, you know, change their mind, but that certainly is still an option. So thank you, Controller Phillips. Is there anything further on this item, or should we proceed to a vote?
I think we can proceed.
Well, and so you are still going to get us the receipt of,
Oh, absolutely.
because going forward, that we're not going to have those numbers, even if the program appears successful, right? Because we're not going to know it other than be able to say they graduated. So.
Well, I think we can, you know, over the course of time, we can ask for updates on it. And you're right, recidivism is a statistic with a long tail to it. But I do think we can ask of the warden and the staff to get, you know, updates every so often about how the program is progressing.
I meant from prior use of the program, that's all.
Got it. Okay. So if nothing further, those who approve of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And I can't be certain of what I heard, but Controller Phillips, can you help with what the outcome was?
No nays. Everyone's.
Unanimous. Okay, great. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. And we do remain committed to Board Member King's comments. I do think it's important. And so I never see this as opposition when we have conversation. I think it's appropriate and important to have conversations, because it's not just us in this room, even though it feels that way. Because we are telecasted, there are other individuals who are interested in receiving the information as well.
Yeah.
So at this time, before I pass the presentation to the Deputy Warden report, are there any questions? I know I went over a lot that I could answer from the board. Okay.
No questions from me, but I just would like to reflect on a really extraordinary year. And I say that fully conscious of the fact that we still have much to do and progressing our jail forward. And, you know, I think no doubt a lot of that comes from our needs to continue to invest in the infrastructure that our team is tasked with overseeing. But I mean, that list is pretty remarkable. There's really been a lot that's gone on this year that has advanced where we stand. And I want to thank the warden, and I want to thank the staff, and I want to thank all of our employees for their work every single day in caring for those in their custody, protecting the community at large, and helping to create an institution that we can all, it's a weird word to use with regards to a jail, but an institution that we can be proud of.
Thank you.
And then if I may, I would like to thank Warden Williams for inviting my deputies to participate in the cell extraction training. Thank you.
I know you know this already, Sheriff, but in case any of your employees are listening, it was extraordinary. And we greatly appreciate, I think there's so much learning that can happen from people who are similarly fashioned in duties and responsibilities, but gained appreciation. That was something that they offered unsolicited. They really didn't fully understand, though some of them have previously worked in the agency, what the correctional officers do. And in inverse, the same for what the sheriff deputies do. And I think that shared learning increases that partnership and professional regard and respect for two very important members of the law enforcement community. So thank you guys for the partnership.
Thank you. Well,
and I'd like to invite Deputy Warden Daley Falley to continue the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Warden Williams. Good evening, JOFA members. As the warden said, we did a lot in 2023, and I'm not going to go through the review. She covered most of it. I'm just going to touch base on 4 main items. We had our annual volunteer recertification on December 9th. This was offered virtually to accomplish a large population. Thank you for all the volunteer and community-based organizations who attended the recertification training, and Reverend Dunn and Instructor Bennett Bowens that facilitated. The Public Health Management Corporation received funding from the Bureau of Justice assisted to provide reentry program at George W. in 2024 as part of the CJAB initiative. And Kelly Shaw in her reentry presentation, she'll go more in detail about it. Religious services, Sacrament of Recreation will start on Thursday, December 21st in the non-contact visitation. The women will be at 9 and the men will be at 10. Catholic Mass for December will be on Tuesday for the male, December 26th at 7:30, and Friday, December 29th at 1:30 for the male. Couple of personnel announcement. Welcome aboard Alexandra Prescott and Kimberly Brown for joining the George W. case management team. I would like to thank all the case managers, especially Senior Case Manager John Sweater, Kathy Miller, for meeting all the needs of the population during this transition period. As the warden said, we are going through attrition, but our short team, a small team, they're very dedicated and they really provide case manager service delivery to a very large population. Before I pass the presentation to Ms. Shaw, does anybody has any question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shaw.
Good evening, members of the board and the public. I'm going to review a few reentry updates and highlights for the month of November. Maternity Care Coalition continues to visit the facility bi-monthly to provide individual support for pregnant women and new mothers. And it's important to note that services are available post-release, and it has been communicated that over 50% of the women who participate utilize this service post-release. And in the new year, we will expand partnership with Maternity Care Coalition to provide group classes for mothers and mothers-to-be. Delaware Community College Partnership. We are currently in cohort 5 of a college course, and tomorrow that will be completed and 9 men are enrolled in the program. And when that is completed for the year, we will have 49 incarcerated learners who have successfully completed a Delaware County Community College course. And it's important to note when they complete the course, they are enrolled in Delaware Community College to help alleviate some of the challenges when enrolling in college they are already in. The First Step vocational program, on November 27th, we administered our 10th cohort, and it is a women's cohort. 5 women are currently enrolled, and this is our second women's cohort for the year. And we got some exciting news this afternoon. We were just notified that the Pathway Home Grant, which funds the First Step program, accepted our grant modification to enroll individuals who live in Philadelphia County and Chester County. Prior to that, it was only open to Delaware County residents. So the modification will assist in achieving our goal of serving 150 participants. So we will keep you posted on the progress of the modification. And this year, we are happy to continue our partnership with the University of Pennsylvania to administer the Gold Rank Reentry Initiative, referred to as GRI. UPenn Master of Social Work students meet with incarcerated persons 3 months prior to release to develop individualized reentry plans. 3 men are currently stipulated to the program. And after a successful completion of the program, participants are eligible for an early parole. And Judge Amoroso, you mentioned program recidivism earlier, and I think it's important to note that last year we had 5 participants complete the program, and thus far we have a 0% recidivism rate. Lastly, we're excited to start a new program in 2024, as mentioned earlier, the Delaware County Reentry Program, referred to as DCRP. DCRP will collaborate with participants to develop individualized, comprehensive reentry plans on a weekly basis, 30 days prior to release. Participants enrolled in the program will continue to receive extensive case management service for 60 days post-release. And post-release probation and parole will be updated on monitoring. Reentry plans will address behavioral health, physical health, recovery and family supports, housing, employment, vocational, educational, and other community supports. DCRP is open to an individual serving a Delaware County sentence. Individuals must be a Delaware County resident. And what is unique about this program is that there are no exclusions regarding criminal offense. Individuals will be identified through the district attorney's office, and participation is voluntary. George W. Hill, the district attorney office, public defender's office, and probation and parole agencies will play an active role in the program. DCRP is funded through a grant awarded to Public Health Management Corporation by the Borough of Justice Assistance. And Public Health Management Corporation is a nonprofit public health institute. The Public Health Management Corporation will be staffing the extensive case management services. And it's important to note, program participants and non-participants will continue to receive in-house case management services. DCRP is an addition to our case management service. Partnership with the Public Health Management Corporation is anticipated to serve 100 individuals over the next 3 years and support reintegration into the community. Progress will be monitored, reported, and assessed weekly. Upon completion of the grant-funded program, a final report will be submitted to the facility. An implementation of DCRP is an opportunity for Delaware County criminal justice agencies to collaborate and identify barriers to successful reentry and improve performance measures for justice-involved Delaware County residents. We strive to implement the services in mid-January in 2024. Thank you. Can I answer any questions?
Any questions from board members? All right. Unless there's anything further, and again, it's hard to read the room, but I believe we can now move on to new business and the inmate welfare audit.
I think that's right. And I think this is my, my item. When we took over the jail, back to public control, we also took over, as many people in the jail know and live daily, we took over the business processes. And, on April 6, 2022, there was transfers of funds from GEO in regards to different accounts. So one of those accounts, it was the inmate welfare fund. So also as part of our requirements for meeting requirements of the Department of Corrections and inspections, it's necessary to have an audit done of the inmate welfare fund and other funds. So I'm pleased to say that this year, from my office, being staffed with CPA and certified fraud examiners and very experienced auditors, we were able to conduct the audit for 2022, which ran from the time the funds were given to the county to the end of 2022. And I've delivered that report to members of the Jail Oversight Board and to the warden and her staff and Ms. Mastrodi. The bottom line is it was a clean audit. It's good. I think this will be satisfactory to any reviewing agency. And then we'll do another one for 2023. Now that we've got it down, I will note just when the year ended in 2022, there was $3,581,490. And now I heard tonight that in November, there was $3,880,000 and some change. So we've added $300,000 to that fund. And I know some things were purchased out of it. So it is a source that I think the board should keep looking at to see what's appropriate for expenditures. But I do want to thank Deputy Mastrodi and her staff for their courtesy and the warden for having 3 auditors descend upon them. And if I had another day and wasn't in this meeting all day, I probably would have been able to present the trust fund audit, which is completed as well, and that'll be forthcoming to the board. So there's a lot of transactions up there, and you do a really good job. So this is independent because I'm independent, but my auditors are independent, and hopefully this is a good model going forward. So I'm open to answer any questions, although I'm not the accountant, but I am the controller. So, but I'm really pleased that we got this done. One last thing, when we took over the jail, this work, as part of some other reviews, did cost $33,000 in a year. So while I do have staff on site, we do not have any bill to send up to George W. Hill to pay this. Before that was necessary, but now, we can do it in-house as we said we would, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, I personally thank the efforts of the controller and those in her office for their oversight here and for saving some taxpayer dollars that we can allocate elsewhere.
Thank you.
If nothing else on the matter, we can move on to our second and final round of public comment. So if there is someone from the public who would like to address the board, now's the time to do so. And please limit your comments to 3 minutes as shown on the monitor. and please give your name and address to start your comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board today?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bob Ciccanelli, 6 East Marthard Avenue in Havertown, representing Delco CPR. I came to briefly reflect on our card drive. The goal of the drive is to bring a little happiness to the people inside the facility and also to their loved ones out here in our communities. And in order to do this, it takes more than collecting boxes of cards and delivering them down to the jail. It takes the generous help of the staff at George W. Hill. And that starts with the approval from Warden Williams, the incredible liaison help from Deputy Fowley, who through many emails and cross conversations kept this thing all flowing forward. The help of your case management staff from making the cards available, handling the requests, delivering the cards, collecting the cards, the donation of the postage, and finally, somebody gave them to the United States Postal Service. Without all of this, our collection would be meaningless. And so I just want to say that, this is a great example of the partnership between the facility and the community because it represents a real accomplishment that I think directly enhances the quality of life for the people inside and their loved ones outside, even if only for a brief moment. And I thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, there looks like there's no additional comments from the public.
All right. Thank you, Controller Phillips. Then we can move now on to board member comment. Are there any further comments from the board tonight?
Yeah, comment.
Yes, Mr. King.
Good afternoon, board and everyone and the public. I just would like to say this year has been a fantastic year from where we came from this jail oversight board. I also want to say that just being honest with it, it's been a very learning journey for me. And I just want the board to know and the public to know and the people that's here and listening that we know we have a lot of work to still do in the county for our residents inside the prison and for our loved ones in the county. And I want them to know because people contact me and some of our board members that we have not forgotten about anything that they think we need to address. The prison has been very cooperative with me, and I really appreciate that, Warden Williams and Kelly, because Kelly's like my contact go-to person. And I want to make this statement because I don't want people to think that when we have these meetings, we're always talking about all of the good things and we don't think there's work that needs to be done because we know it. We do, we have to. And I think it's just appropriate for me as a board member, personally, what I'm saying to the public and to our board members and to our staff, that it is important to us. Everything is important, the good things and the things that aren't so good. So I just wanted to say I appreciate being on this board. I've learned a lot. I've been able to help people and help people out here in Delaware County whose loved ones are actually incarcerated. So it's an honor and a pleasure, and I appreciate it. And I think we had a really good year.
Well, Mr. King, I appreciate you, and I just want to thank you for your the heart that you bring to this job and your dedication to your role in the Jail Oversight Board. And I extend that to all of my colleagues on the Jail Oversight Board. This is a voluntary and unpaid role that you all take on. And it's not just these monthly meetings or the executive sessions, but it's your time going out to the facility, fielding the inquiries that we get from the public and, your dedication. So I just want to thank my colleagues, all of you, for your involvement.
I'd like to make a comment on two things. One, I just want to say, looking at the year in review was excellent, and I hope you get the opportunity to do that for county council and even other employees of the county. If there was just some way, like a lunch, hear about the prison, because what is really happening is there's communication between departments. I'm fortunate and honored to be here every day, but if people knew the extent of communication between the jail staff and my staff. I appreciate them all. Mr. Brogan and staff and the bookkeepers, it is really a remarkable thing. And the success would not happen if we stayed in our silos. So that has been really, an important thing. I just want to say thanks to them, but I think this message has to get out. I do agree with Mr. King, and I will say I've now been here 6 years and I found that jail contract on maybe the second day I got to the county, and the progress that we've made and the amount of work that everyone's put in has been extraordinary. And I know there's a lot of work to be done, but I remain extremely proud of where we've gotten to, and it couldn't be done without all the people doing their job. So thank you, and it's really a remarkable progress. The progress will go forward, but it's remarkable, really. So thank you for everything.
Thank you, Controller Phillips.
I wish that and I hope I'm not the last one to speak, but I just wanted the notes to reflect that sometimes we as judges get information from inmates, letters, and believe me, when I say, like, sometimes we get them and they tell us things that are things that I cannot control. I did receive a letter from such an inmate. I don't think it's appropriate for me to go into any of the allegations, but rather I have given the letter to Warden Williams to allow her to look into whatever those were, and then I am done with it. So I just wanted to make sure that that got on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Anything further?
Yeah, one last comment. I just want to, as a staff that operates a 24/7 facility, as we come into the holidays, to thank everyone for their service, because there's going to be individuals that don't have the opportunity, be home with families that are, running George W. Hill. So we appreciate that service, and knowing for the incarcerated that are in there, that, the holiday time, can become a lot more stressful, right? High emotions, and for everyone, to be safe and to, continue to move forward with that, and, just appreciate the service. So thank you.
Any other comments for this evening?
And staff. As Sheriff, I just want to thank you for the seamless interaction that we have on a daily basis. I thank you. Your department and the sheriff's office, the outsiders looking in wouldn't know there was a difference, because our communication is so great. I don't take it for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any other comments for this evening? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all, and we'll see you in 2024.